There are some presenters who are just great at what they do, be it podcast or on radio. You may listen to a podcaster and think, how do I get as good as that? I'm about to share with you the how to unleash the power of the presenter with some tips and skills to help you on your way. It's episode 10 of Radio Skills for Podcasters.
Learn the secrets of the radio industry.
Create powerful podcasts.
Powerful podcasts.
Hello, I'm Kevin Field, your host of Radio Skills for Podcasters. In each episode, I share a plethora of skills, tips, tricks, and mistakes gained from a career of working in the radio industry. There are other podcasts in this series. You can learn about format, find out about how to know your listener, and great advice on interview skills and editing. This episode's top tip is all about learning from listening. I'd always like to hear from you, so please feel free to get in touch. Feedback and any questions are welcome. skills@radioskillsforpodcasters.com. And if you like this podcast, or if it's helped you in any way, feel free to tweet or review on iTunes.
This is Radio Skills for Podcasters.
So how do you unleash the presenter in you? Some people are natural orators and communicators. You meet them and you go, wow, he's good, or she's great. It seems effortless to them. However, even they have practiced, observed, learnt, and know how to deliver their craft. It's simply about technique, style, and preparation. The power of presentation skills comes from how you apply a series of techniques, skills, theories, and how you put them into practice. Anyone can pick up a microphone, but there are some people who are exceptional, who the microphone was invented for. Not everyone can make it compelling, be composed, be confident. Key factors of great presenters are warmth and fantastic communication skills. It doesn't matter if you're on Key 100, Radio 2, or if you're hosting a podcast. Wherever you go, these two key components of a presenter's toolkit are so important. Warmth and being fantastic at communication. I'm going to go into some of the skills that I've picked up over the years and that I noticed the very best presenters have. There are people I hugely admire, and I've observed them, noted it down, learnt what they do, and tried to apply that myself over the years, but not copying their style, creating my own style, being me, but also while trying to be different. What is the compulsion to get in front of a microphone and talk to someone one-to-one like this? Seems crazy, doesn't it? Why do I want to get across all the skills I've learned to you? Madness. I'm stood here in my cellar. It's 10:30 at night on a Monday evening. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. What am I doing? Perhaps it's part entertainment, but it's definitely that I want to pass on my skills. So the first thing you have to do when you want to be a good presenter is understand why you're doing what you're doing. Why do you want to deliver what you've got to say to your audience, to your listener? It's one-to-one. I want to do it because I love sharing my skills. I love sharing what I've learned, and actually I want to hear what you do with those skills. I'd love to know what you do with those skills. Always in the feedback, tell me what you've done. I want to know if it's worked for you. But there are some key skills that every presenter, I think, has. And I'm going to share with you those key skills now. Compelling. Connect with the listener. Leave them wanting more always. You don't have to deliver everything. Make it count, though, when you do deliver every time. Punctuate your story and take your listener on a journey. Whether it's planned on paper in front of you or if it's spoken from the heart, a compelling story sells your thoughts, your ideas, and what you want to achieve. Being off the cuff and ad-libbing is sometimes, well, it's great, but very few presenters can do it. Try it, but planning and preparation is a key element of ad-libbing as well, and it's definitely the key element of great presentation skills. It's also about finding out what works for you, either fully scripted or bullet pointed. Either way, speaking from the heart with passion and about something you really care about is key to making the content compelling for your listener. So how do you become compelling about something you don't really know much about? Well, if you don't know much about it, it'll come across to your listener. So perhaps what you do is get a guest in who knows a lot about that subject matter and let their passion ignite your podcast. Composure is another key element, being able to work almost in any given situation. Things can go wrong in a studio when you're recording or when you're doing it live. I guess it's being able to keep that composure in these situations. When it really goes wrong, how do you react to it? I remember a time when I was on air on a radio station where they'd changed the radio station name. We went through a complete rebranding process. It was horrible, especially because I liked the station that was there before. And it's a bit like the Alan Partridge thing where they renamed the station, although we didn't take anyone hostage. We didn't do that. But what happened is I was on air one day. You've got a computer in front of you. There's no bass unit in the studios normally. They're usually out in a racks room. And there I was doing my stuff, brand new radio station, same old me, different jingles, slightly different music, all of that sort of stuff. And then the computer broke. Stopped. Completely nothing. I'm said, sat there going, what am I doing? So I put the mic on, started talking. And I love to talk, getting information and things out on air and entertaining and reading texts out at the time, all that sort of stuff. And I was fumbling around with the CD. Yes, the Magic CD. This CD helps you get out of sticky situations. You put it in, you play it, and it plays the radio station jingle at the start, and then it plays the sound of the station, the music, and has jingles in between. Right, it does that. And some segues that if you need to, you can talk over. Yeah, I pre-fade listened to that CD just in case. On the CD were the old radio station's image idents, the jingles from the old radio station. I couldn't play the CD. So on the spur of the moment, what do? Because to reboot the PC, I had to go out to the racks room, but I couldn't leave the microphone because the radio station had been dead air. I couldn't play any adverts, I couldn't play any jingles, I couldn't play any music. I plugged my iPod in and started playing tracks off of that. And then started rebooting the PC between the end of the song on my iPod. The listener had no idea that anything had gone wrong. It was about composure. I guess composure is also about confidence. Some very successful podcasters, presenters on the radio, have confidence in abundance. It's something I always notice, or they're faking it and very good at faking it. But that's something you need to do. Confidence doesn't just come across in how you look, it comes across in how you sound. Sound confident is a key thing. How your voice works, how you use your voice, how you intonate, and how you get points across is all to do with composure and confidence. Selling is one of the key elements of presentation skills, especially on commercial radio in the UK, but also on public radio in the US and the UK. The BBC, they're always selling stuff. Yes, they don't sell anything strictly, but they're always promoting to other things that are happening on the BBC. So it's a key skill in presenting. And especially for you as a podcaster, you need to sell up all the time. Remember the call to actions you've got? You want to keep people listening into the content you've got, make it simple, make it quality, and sell. So selling is something you should read up on. The art of selling, the art of presentation techniques to sell. As a radio presenter, when I wasn't on air, I was dealing with marketing. That is sales in itself, promoting the radio station to get more listeners in. But also I was doing radio sales. I sold radio advertising to areas where they couldn't hear the radio station. That's sad, isn't it, really? But still, it brought the money in. That's what counts. Another thing that great presenters do is close the circle. They always relate one-to-one with their listener. I've said this in a previous episode. Use the word you instead of everyone. The sadly late Sir Terry Wogan presented on BBC Radio 2 for 27 years. He was a fantastic broadcaster and an inspiration to my career and many of my colleagues and many other people who've worked in radio and TV. Key thing, though, to his superb shows was that Sir Terry spoke directly to his listener one-to-one. There's some wonderful stories about Sir Terry Wogan. One day his mixer broke and the engineer came in, So instead of going into another studio, he let the engineer fix the mixing desk while he continued with the show with just 2 faders. And the engineer recounts the story. When he talks about it, he says, while the music was playing, Sir Terry was talking to me and we were having a conversation. And just before the record finished, Sir Terry said, "Excuse me a moment, I just need to talk to my other listener." And that's what it was about for him, one-to-one. He was once asked how many people listened to your breakfast show, with the interviewer fully knowing there was 9 million people. He said, "I only broadcast to one person." So closing the circle with your listener means talking one-to-one to your listener, relating directly to your listener, and they will relate back to you. The other thing is to find out what type of presenter you are. Do you prefer presenting monologue pieces like this, or are you comfortable in a studio with people around? Do you prefer to have guests for interviews? Are you the person to present the ideas, or the presenter who links everything together where other people have ideas? Do you want to provide the compelling information or guide the program so others do? You need to decide that. What type of presenter do you want to be? The key thing also is to be yourself. Going back to Sir Terry Wogan, he was just the same off-air than he was on-air. You don't need to add any fake accent. This is how I sound in real life. No fake accents. This is me. There's a little trick that producers and programmers work with presenters on the radio in a way to help people achieve the be yourself naturalness on air. And one way of imprinting your characteristics on the show is to do a little task like this. You get a piece of paper, just a white A4, you draw a line in the middle. Above that line, you put key things that you know are really important about you and your life. Below the line, you put things that are less important to you and your life. Now, you do the same with your listener, above the line, below the line, and then you compare and contrast, but you make sure you imprint the things that you're really interested in and your listener you think is interested in into the program. This way, it helps you build content and deliver that content that is targeted right at your listener. Work out your strengths and weaknesses. Work on these and practice and build on them. Practice makes perfect. It's true, isn't it? The guy who's brilliant at golf, he's been practicing for years. Lewis Hamilton had a unique skill, but he practiced as much as possible to make that unique skill world champion skill. I remember a story from Rory Bremner, the impressionist. He's really good at political impressions. I think that's one of his key things, doing political impressions. He practices, though, when he's stuck in traffic. And I remember him telling a story of one day when he's doing all sorts of number of people sat in traffic with the window down because it's hot weather. He was doing Michael Heseltine at the time, and the guy in the car next to him is just looking at him in such an odd way, and he just smiles and drives off. So it doesn't matter where you practice in front of the mirror, when you're doing it live, whatever, do it. Just practice. Practice makes perfect. Which brings me to my next thread. Don't worry about the haters. Do listen to constructive criticism from others. Learn from it, but equally ignore those who detract you from where you're going, your direction, where you want to be. I've had so many times programmers say to me, "No, you're not for me, mate. Don't take it at heart. I've got tons of no letters, tons of them. A book full of no letters from radio stations. It's incredible." And some of the people I've worked with since, which is hilarious. I remember going into the office of one programmer, a group program director, and he said to me, "No, I've got no producer roles here for you, mate. None. And I said, "All right then, cheers." I went off and got another job somewhere else. I was fine with it. It was a knockback. He did have a producer role. I think we just didn't gel as people. You just keep on going and learn. Equally ignore the voices in your head as well that say you're no good at this. One of the things we do in radio stations often, and we're lucky to do, not everyone does this actually, it's a bit crazy. Some presenters don't do this, but most decent radio stations do this. They'll have a Snoop tape session. A Snoop tape is just the speech bits from the program, or less there's features as well. And we used to do this with breakfast shows. When I was a breakfast producer, it would be me, the program controller, and the breakfast team, and we'd all go and do a Snoop session. And it wasn't meant to be criticism of the show or a complete downer. The idea of it was to look at what worked and how to improve the approach and understand what you did worked and understand what didn't. It's more reflective than critical. And I think it's a good thing to do. I've always found them valuable. So a good thing is to listen back to your content, think about what worked and didn't, see which podcasts got really good feedback and understand why. And you can always count on someone like me. I offer the podcast surgery where I offer a critique of your podcast. I listen back to 3 of your podcasts and then write up an advice sheet, and I can talk to you for 30 minutes on Skype as well. So it gives an overview of where your podcast is and the things I think of what you need to do. If you'd like to take up that opportunity, I only have limited space. You can get in touch. skills@radioskillsforpodcasters.com or message me on Twitter, radio_skills. Hopefully by applying some or all of these techniques that I've talked about in this podcast, you'll be able to unleash the power of the presenter in you.
Learn the secrets of the radio industry.
Radio Skills for Podcasters.
This week's top tip links to the power of the presenter, and that's listening. To listen to others, but don't emulate them. My top tip is listen to as much as you can, as many podcasts, the great ones, the rubbish ones. Listen to radio as well. Listen to interview techniques. There's some great interview techniques used by different people, different styles. Listen and find your own style. You know, pull it apart, rip it up, put it back together as if it was your own, how you'd put it back together. Listen to the best, the worst, everything, and apply the techniques that are great that you think that work into your podcast. Rip it up, put it back together, and have fun. Here's a special thing that you can go and grab right now from radioskillsforpodcasters.com. Do you ever get annoyed where you've got lots of different notes of this, that, and everything else, and you need to put them all together into your show notes to put on WordPress? Or maybe you need to send the detail off to your producer or editor who edits your podcast up for you. Or maybe you've lost some notes and you just don't know where you are on a certain podcast. How about this? I've got a free show sheet, checklist and planner for your podcast. You can get it right now at radioskillsforpodcasters.com. It's yours for free. It's what I use all the time for doing radio programs and podcasts. It's a show sheet. You can put your show details on it, your show notes, lift them up and put them on WordPress afterwards. You can put a time signature note for your producer. You can leave some notes for your producer your editor to edit up your podcast. Checklist there as well. Tick off the different tasks you need to do your podcast. It's all in one, built in Word. It's free. Go and grab it. Next time on Radio Skills for Podcasters, I continue to unleash the power of the presenter with the Podcaster Presenter Checklist. That's episode 11 of Radio Skills for Podcasters. Catch you then.
Find us on Facebook, Google+, Radio Skills for Podcasters.
At radio_skills on Twitter.
Thanks for listening.
www.radioskillsforpodcasters.com.